The most important person in the whole wide world is you, and you hardly even know you. The most important person in the whole wide world is you. Come on, we'll show you. Let's find out more about the things you feel and do, 'cause you're the most important person in the world to you.
Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. Welcome to One for All is Love. And today's episode, we will be presenting Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. I advertised it as part 1 of 2. It might be part 1 of 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so One for All is Love presents an analysis of Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And we'll explore the concepts behind it and how they may be applied. So, who is Oliver Napoleon Hill? Oliver Napoleon Hill was an American self-help author who lived from October 26, 1883 to November 8, 1970, and is best known for the book we will be exploring today, Think and Grow Rich, which was published in 1937. That's almost 100 years ago. The book is available in the public domain, so you can copy a free PDF online. Also, there is an updated audiobook version on YouTube in which the editors have included modern-day success stories, which include Steve Jobs, Jack Welch, and so on. All right, so let's just say that everything happens for a reason. And what does that mean? Well, last week I did this episode, believe it or not, and it was just a one and all. Okay, it was just one episode. It was just going to be about Think and Grow Rich. And let's just say that, like I said, everything happens for a reason. The audio didn't work. So I'm presenting my episode, but it's not recording, and it's not being broadcasted. So I was basically mute. Only I didn't know until after the fact. Okay. So that's an experience. So, okay, now that provokes me to say, hey, what's going on here? So, you know, so I guess about 2 or 3 weeks ago, the spirit had moved me to read and present to Think and Grow Rich. And, you know, I was well aware of Napoleon Hill, but I had not read the book until recently. But I accepted the task and thought, you know, I was going to deliver it last week. And, of course, only to find out that, you know, it was minus the audio, any sound. So I'm thinking to myself, what the heck? So, of course, this calls for introspection. So basically I inquired, I said, why the silent treatment? You know, I have a sense of humor with spirit. So anyway, why the silent treatment? Why wasn't there any sound? So the following morning, you know, and I didn't really ask it seriously, but it was a question. You know, like, okay, so this happened. What does this mean? Why did it happen? And so the following morning when I was meditating, the universe was so kind as to inform me that I could and should do a better job. So I was instructed to put my heart into it. And so, of course, I am obliging. I got it. So here we are. Let's get started. So the book is comprised of 15 chapters and bonus material of a workshop and test questions. And originally we were going to focus on the first 8 chapters, but as we started getting into the meat of it, I would have done it a disservice. But the book is a very easy read with plenty of examples of success stories. And Napoleon Hill reminds me a lot of Neville Goddard, even though I have never heard Napoleon Hill's voice, or so I think. But Neville Goddard, his storytelling, when you hear his voice, is so soothing and kind of grandfatherly. And the words on these pages kind of put me in the same mood. It's relaxing. It's not verbose. It's, like I said, it's easily digestible for anyone to follow. Okay. So today we're going to focus on the first 6 chapters. And like I said, the book is a very easy read, and the material is close to 100 years old. So if you need some modern-day examples, The audio version is excellent. It's still the original PDF. It has all the original examples and material of the original PDF. However, the editors have added extra examples for modern day purposes, so I guess people can relate. Okay, so let's continue. The first 6 chapters are Introduction, Desire. Well, the first chapter is Introduction. The second one is Desire. The third one is Faith. Number 4 is Autosuggestion. Number 5 is Specialized Knowledge. And number 6 is Imagination. And it's a lot of information. And we have, 55 minutes. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Chapter 1 is the introduction. He has a couple of stories in there. One about a guy named Edward C. Barnes, which I'll refer to. Another one called 3 Feet from Gold, 3 Feet from Gold, and a 50-cent lesson in persistence. I am not going to belabor the stories just because it's the value add of reading it yourself. I just really want to focus on kind of like the concept. So chapter 1, the introduction chapter is subtitled The Man Who Thought His Way into Partnership with Thomas Edison. So that's the subtitle. And it is an absolutely delicious tale on focus, passion, and persistence. And the gentleman's name is Edwin C. Barnes. And he'll elaborate on how Barnes went from absolutely no relationship to Edison to being his partner by holding this thought in his mind. Excuse me. Okay, so now, as I'm reading this material, I find it utterly fascinating. So, I'm not sure if Napoleon Hill was a mystic, but he was certainly well-versed in universal laws and how to apply them. So, that's basically what this podcast is all about, is universal laws and being the authority of over our own energy and being able to manifest what we want, without any harm to anyone else. Okay, so, all right, so Napoleon Hill talks about, Edward C. Barnes. And so the first paragraph in chapter 1 reads, truly, thoughts are things, and powerful things at that, when they are mixed with definiteness, a definitive purpose, persistence, and a burning desire for their translation into riches or other material objects. So basically, he's saying thoughts become things. We've all heard this before from anyone who's into New Age, New Thought, metaphysics, esotericism, mystics. Thoughts become things. And if you're not familiar with this concept, grab a hold, because it is the foundation for everything. It is the foundation for everything. The first universal law is all is mental. The all is mind. All is mental. So everything, God is mental, basically, mental energy. Okay. So, Hill says it right away. Thoughts are things. So we already know he's talking about universal law. Okay. And as we have discussed on this podcast, pretty much every episode is that thoughts do become things. Thoughts are ideas, concepts, visions, the intangible predecessor to material objects. So thoughts originate from the mind, whether yours or someone else's. Remember, a part of the first universal law is that all is mind, which means oneness. Everything is one. Everything comes from the same substance, makeup, whatever you want to call it. The thought, think of a thought as a seed, and whatever seed you plant, expect it to be the fruit of that seed. Well, what does that mean? Of course I expect it to be the fruit of that seed. Well, if you plant an apple seed, do not expect an orange tree to grow. That's basically all that means. So the seed already knows what life exists in. When you think about life, oh my goodness, and this is so profound. You think about a little seed that you hold in your hand, and do you really give it that much thought that within, just think of an apple seed that's within an apple, if you've never planted apple seeds before. But the little bitty seed that is in an apple, you can plant that and it can grow an apple tree which will produce more of its own fruit. That is fascinating. I know it sounds so simplistic because we take it for granted, but it's really not. That is an awesome concept. Okay, so if you plant negative seeds, do not expect a positive tree to grow or a positive outcome to become of the negative seed. That's basically what it's saying. The process does not change the purpose of the seed. The process, the growth, the energy, the process, the transforming energy helps it to become what it is. It is already an apple seed. It is, and inside that seed is apple qualities. Everything to make it an apple. Everything that it needs. There's even a tree in there. Can you believe that there's a tree inside that seed? Okay. But it is. That's how thoughts become things. So wrap your head around that, please. Okay, so if you entertain and host negative, fearful, doubtful, unproductive thoughts, then you will materialize a world, your world, of objects filled with the same energy. Okay? So that includes people, experiences, your attitude, the way people's attitudes towards you, whether they know you, whether they don't know you. That is what you attract. So he'll iterate ad nauseum, might I add, the significance of purpose, desire, and persistence. Okay? Purpose, desire, and persistence. And I would rather just swap out the word desire for passion or passion for desire. And now we have 3 P's and the recipe for success. Purpose, passion, and persistence. Okay, so purpose is the what? The goal, the object. What are we hoping to achieve? The what? Passion is the why, the energy to get started. It's the fuel of the fire. It's getting started. But it's also that drive, because Hill refers to desire as not just desire, but a burning desire. That's why I love the word passion, because passion, even by its definition, was pretty interesting. Google it real quick. Passion, it says, a strong and barely controllable emotion. And the operative word being barely, because it is, if you've ever been in love, then you know what I'm talking about. What that energy you have, well, for me, I had no control over it. But at the same time, I wasn't fighting it either. I mean, I was loving it, because it's a feeling unlike any that you've ever experienced. And to be quite honest, I don't even think we can manufacture that on a human level. I think it comes from the ether net. Okay, and the last one, persistence. The how, the energy to the energy to finish what you started. Okay, passion does burn out. It just does. I don't know why, but it does. I don't know if it happens over a period of time, whatever it is. However, so passion can be considered like a teenager. Persistence is an adult. Persistence is keeping at it until it comes to fruition. Okay? Hill's quote on persistence: winners never quit, quitters never win. That was in the book. I'm sure he did not originate that, but you get the point. But he did also say riches begin with a state of mind, with a definitive purpose, and with little or no hard work. Okay? So Hill goes on to talk about, with respect to Mr. Barnes, well, or not with respect to Mr. Barnes, but within that framework of that story. But definite knowledge that an intangible impulse of thought, so an intangible impulse of thought can be transmuted into its physical counterpart by the application of some known principles. Sounds like universal laws to me. Okay. And he goes on to say that Mr. Barnes literally thought himself into a partnership with the great Edison. He thought himself into a fortune. He had nothing to start with except the capacity to know what he wanted and the determination to stand by that desire until he realized it. And he had no money to begin with, and he had little education. He had no influence, but he did have initiative, faith, and the will to win. With these intangible forces, he made himself the number one man with the greatest inventor who ever lived. You got to read it. It's a beautiful story. It's a beautiful story about a guy who had nothing and really came from nowhere. But he was determined. So even though he didn't have anything in terms of physically, because, that's how we measure everything is by what we see. So because physically he didn't appear to have anything, he actually was rich in the intangible. The initiative, the faith, and the will. The will to win, the will to succeed, the perseverance, the purpose, the passion, and the persistence. Okay, so success and failures, Hill goes on to say, are nothing but states of mind. Long before you act, you have resolved in your mind whether you will be successful or not. Okay, and so what are we talking about here? We are talking about universal law number one. The mind is all. The universe is mental. All things which exist originated in God's mind or in the mind of his created co-creators, human beings. He created us, and we can also co-create with God, okay, using our subconscious mind. So Hill goes on to say, keep an open mind. Allow thoughts to enter your consciousness, but be aware of them. And of course, I go on to say that all thoughts in your head are not necessarily your own. And I recommend reading Homer's Iliad. Pretty good story. But it talks about the gods basically impressing mortal men's minds in their sleep. Okay. All right, so number one, the introduction, it was basically the three things we got out of it. The formula for success: purpose, passion, persistence. Okay, we'll need those three things. And so he goes on to say that success and failure are states of mind, and we need to bear that in mind. Okay. All right, let's continue. So the open-mindedness, I already elaborated on that. Let's move on to chapter 2, and it is desire. Desire, Hill says, is the starting point of all achievement, the first step towards riches. Okay, so desire, Hill refers to desire as burning desire, as I mentioned earlier, and I prefer the term passion. It's a driving force. I liken it, well, of course, I've already explained, I liken it to falling in love or being in love. It's a force of energy which moves things, such as compelling a person to act. Even in chapter 2, Hill refers once again to Edwin C. Barnes as an example of choosing a goal, placing all of his energy, all of his will and effort, everything behind this goal. And that's important. Okay. So Hill goes on to talk about burning all bridges behind you. He says that basically Barnes created a plan by which to attain his purpose, and he burned all bridges behind him. So Barnes did not say, I will work there for a few months, and if I get no encouragement, I will quit and get a job somewhere else. He did say, I will start anywhere. I will do anything Edison tells me to do, but before I am through, I will be his associate. Now, this is Barnes talking to himself. He's affirming to himself. And when you affirm to yourself, basically you're programming your subconscious. And we'll get into that a little bit more. Hill refers to it as autosuggestion. So part of burning all bridges behind him, he says that Barnes did not say, I will keep my eyes open for another opportunity in case I fail to get what I want in the Edison organization. Instead, he said, there is but one thing in this world that I am determined to have, and that is a business association with Thomas A. Edison. I will burn all bridges behind me and stake my entire future on my ability to get what I want. How about that? That's important. And then Hill tells another story just to hit home. A long while ago, a great warrior faced a situation which made it necessary for him to make a decision which ensured his success on the battlefield. He was about to send his armies against a powerful foe whose men outnumbered his own. He loaded his soldiers into boats, sailed them to the enemy's countries, unloaded soldiers and equipment, and gave the order to burn the ships that had carried them. Addressing his men before the first battle, he said, you see the boats going up in smoke? That means that we cannot leave these shores alive unless we win. We now have no choice. We win or perish. And the end of the story, they won. So you see how this works. It's burning the bridges forces you to continue to move forward. Now, think about that. Now, I'm not telling you to go burn bridges at work and burn bridges at home. And Sonia said and Hill said, no. But what I'm saying is you will come to a point in your mind, in your life, where you might have to make that decision and you have to burn that bridge. Because things happen in your life for a reason. So you're not supposed to go back. And I've had a few examples happen to me in the past few months, and I get it. Okay, so Hill goes on to talk about desire, passion, and desire, and passion is the fuel which drives the engine. Desire/passion attracts all the resources needed to transmute this thought into a thing. So, old desire sounds like it hangs out at in the subconscious. Okay, so Hill goes on with discussing a 6-step plan. So let me just kind of read the paragraph to it. Wishing will not bring riches, but desiring riches with a state of mind that becomes an obsession, then planning definite ways and means to acquire riches, and backing those plans with persistence, which does not recognize failure, will bring riches. The method by which desire for riches can be transmuted into its financial equivalent consists of 6 definite practical steps. And here they are. The first one, he says, basically fix your mind on the exact amount of money you wish to desire. It is not, he says, it's not sufficient merely to say, I want plenty of money. Be definite as to the amount. There is a psychological reason for definity. Second, determine exactly what you intend to give in return for the sum you desire. And he says there is no such thing as something for nothing. Basically, he says everything is quid pro quo. And when you think about energy, energy is always exchanged. You know, it can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only be exchanged, converted, transmuted. So that's what's going on. It's the exchange. So to receive what you want, what are you willing to give? It doesn't necessarily have to be give up. You can give something that you have an abundance of. If you think about it, like athletes, hey, to be in the NBA or the NFL, I will give my time, my energy, my dedication, my devotion to practicing and learning everything is to make sure my body is the temple that it needs to be the best athlete possible. So don't think of it as, necessarily giving something up. It's just giving something. Okay, like biblically, they gave what lambs, they gave animals, they sacrificed, animals or crops or whatever. It's the same thing, the exchange, something for something, quid pro quo. Okay, step number 3, establish a definite date when you intend to possess the money you desire. So this is part of the 6-step process for desiring money. I guess I should just preface that, but I suspect this will work with anything. Have a date in mind. Don't be afraid of the deadline. And that's important too, because what happens is we will allow fear to kick in. So let's say I want $1 million by the end of the year. Now, mentally, to be quite honest, I don't know where this is coming from, okay? I would have no earthly idea, to the point where fear and doubt may say it's not even realistic that you would receive it. Did you receive it last year by the end of the year? No, but I didn't ask for it either. So this is why it's important to know yourself, because if you know in the back of your mind that you have seeds of doubt or fear, then these are going to work contrary to what you want. And we'll get into that a little bit more. Okay. But it is important to have definitive amounts, time frames. We got to get past the fear. We got to get over the doubt. We got to get past the fear. Okay. So if that's what's holding you back, then let's let it rip. Okay. Don't be afraid. That's another chapter. Okay, number 4, create a definite plan for carrying out your desire. Let me make sure I don't lose sight of how much time I got. Okay, create a definite plan for carrying out your desire and begin at once, whether you are ready or not, to put this plan into action. And I had to think about that. Okay, so I'm working through this process as I'm doing it, because I'm doing it for myself. It's like, okay, I don't want to just teach this. I need to know how this works. And, we'll stop at that. So I'm going through and I was like, how do you put it in the plan and you haven't even planned it out? How do you put it into action? How do you carry it out? And in your mind, you start working through it. Like you run into these obstacles, but your mind won't stop there if you don't allow it to. Okay, remember, we are the authority over our own mind. We are the authority over our own energy. We just don't know how to use it, so it's getting used by somebody else. So create a definite plan. So I knew what I wanted. I knew when I wanted it. I knew what I was prepared to do for it. But I didn't really have a plan. But I kept ruminating over it in my mind. I just kept saying, how, what can I do? How can I do it? Blah, blah, blah. And, it may come to you right away, or it may come to you a little later on in the day, or it may not come to you until the following day. See, I meditate every day, so I give it an opportunity to channel through, just in case, there's a whole lot of pollution going on throughout the course of my day. Okay, so number 4, create a definite plan. And even if you don't have a definite plan, entertain that thought. And ask the universe, ask the God in you, I need a plan for this, whatever this is. This is what I'm trying to accomplish. This is what I am going to accomplish. This is what I am going to accomplish. This is what I will accomplish. And I need help bringing it to fruition. So work with me, universe. Okay. And then step number 5, write out a clear, concise statement of the amount of money you intend to acquire. Name the time limit for its acquisition. State what you intend to give in return for the money. And describe clearly the plan through which you intend to accumulate it. Okay, so basically steps 1 through 4, you're putting it on paper. So the things that you did in step 1, 2, 3, and 4 now becomes a concise paragraph. And you can refine it. And then the last step number 6, read your written statement aloud twice daily, once just before retiring at night and once after arising in the morning. As you read, see and feel and believe. This is really big. See, feel, and believe. See, feel, and believe yourself already in possession of the money or the objective. Okay, so those are the 6 steps. And I do want to say that it does help. It really does. It helps with focus, and I'm still going through the process, so we'll see. I'll tell you when everything happens. Okay. And so basically, so Hill goes on in the same chapter. I just love some of the language. To the uninitiated, initiate, of course, is a buzzword, who has not been schooled in the working principles of the human mind, these instructions may appear impractical. So Hill understands that if you're not into universal laws, if you're not familiar with personal energy and how yours work or how it works, or the physics of life in terms of thoughts, energy, becoming things, then he said all this is going to sound strange and probably impractical, because and I don't know why people have a hard time with intangibles. Listen, you can't live without air. Can you see it? No. So why are we so hung up on things that we can't see? That's always escaped me, but whatever. But there are people who are like that, and what he's saying is, you'll have to get past that, basically, trust and believe, or faith. That's another chapter. Okay. All right, let's continue. So, basically he just said that desire is the passion, which is the fuel that drives the engine. Okay. So number 2 was desire, or my favorite, passion. And so we're looking at desire and passion. Great so far. Okay. So just a couple of things I want to mention. Hill is so interesting. He said, we who desire to accumulate riches should remember the real leaders of the world always have been people who harnessed and put into practical use the intangible, unseen forces of unborn opportunity, and have converted those forces or impulses of thought, into skyscrapers, cities, factories, airplanes, automobiles, and every form of convenience that makes this life more pleasant. And he has plenty of examples, and they sound even better when you listen to the audio. I like reading, and then I like listening to it too. So I kind of do both, because you hear different things, you read different things, you see, some certain words jump out at you. So he goes on. He says, success requires no apology. Failure permits no alibis. Every failure brings with it the seed of equivalent success. And I've said this before, that every adversity carries an opportunity or embodies an opportunity. And he's basically saying the same thing. Every failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent success. Okay. Practical dreamers do not quit. All right, let's continue. So let's see here. All right. I believe we're moving on to chapter 3 here. Yes, chapter 3 is faith. And of course, the definition of faith is complete trust or confidence in someone or something. Okay. So Hill says, first of all, the subtitle for chapter 3 is Faith and Visualization of and Belief in Attainment of Desire, the second step towards riches. He goes to say, faith is the head chemist of the mind. When faith is blended with the vibrations of thought, the subconscious mind instantly picks up the vibration, translates it into its spiritual equivalent, and transmits it to infinite intelligence, as in the case of prayer. How about that? And he says, the emotions of faith, love, and sex are the most powerful of all the major positive emotions. When the three are blended, they have the effect of coloring the vibration of thought in such a way that it instantly reaches the subconscious mind, where it is changed into its spiritual equivalent, the only form that induces a response from infinite intelligence. So love and faith are psychic, related to the spiritual side of man. Sex is purely biological and related only to the physical. The mixing or blending of these three emotions has the effect of opening a direct line of communication between the finite thinking mind of man and infinite intelligence. All right. So faith, love, and sex. Interesting. So so that's Hill's take on the introduction to faith, and he talks about faith as a state of mind, and that there are also ways to develop faith. So faith is a state of mind which you may develop at will after you have mastered the 13 principles, which we will not touch on in this episode. Okay, and repetition of affirmation of orders to your subconscious mind is the only known method of voluntary development of the emotion of faith. Repetition of affirmation of orders to your subconscious mind is the only known method of voluntary development. Voluntary development, impress, program, whatever language you want to use. So he goes on to say, any impulse of thought which is repeatedly passed on to the subconscious mind is finally accepted and acted upon by the subconscious mind, which proceeds to translate that impulse into its physical equivalent by the most practical procedure available. Any impulse of thought which is repeatedly passed on to the subconscious mind is finally accepted and acted upon by the subconscious mind. Okay. Which is programming. And we've all been programmed. We all have been programmed, whether it's through our parents, the environment, school, church, friends, TV, music. There are programs. Now, does that mean that we're stuck with them? Nope. Just like the programs in your computer. Nope, you're not stuck with them. You can delete them. You can rewrite them. You can reprogram yourself. Okay, so, and he goes on to say that all thoughts which have been emotionalized, i.e. given feeling, and mixed with faith, which is confidence and trust, actually confidence more than trust, but yeah, begin immediately to translate themselves into their physical equivalent or counterpart. The emotions or the feeling portion of thought are the factors which give thought vitality, life, and action. Okay, so ways to develop faith. He touched on affirmations, repetition, because the words themselves don't really do a whole lot. Now, I'm going to tell you the fastest way with affirmations, if you can put them into a song. Teaching ESL, we used to teach, kindergartners or preschoolers, and they weren't allowed to speak English. They could only speak their native language, whether it was Korean or Chinese. And it's through song that they learn a lot of words. And think about it, and I thought about it recently. A song that is 30, 40, 50 years old can come on the radio, and you probably haven't heard it in 10 or 20 years, and you still know all the words. Well, at least I do. Okay. So if you want to program yourself faster, write your own affirmations and put it to music. I have a Thank You Universe song, and it's got affirmations woven into it, and I sing it in the morning when I get up. I sing it in the shower. I dance to it, and it makes me feel good. But I also know it's programming my subconscious too, and that's what's really important. So other ways to develop faith: affirmation, introspective reflection. Now, I call it talking to myself or talking to the God in me. Same thing. I ask questions that I want the answer to. God answers all your questions. You just have to recognize that your voice is God talking to you. And if you start second guessing stuff, that's not God. That's the conscious. God doesn't second guess. God is not indecisive. Okay. Other ways of developing faith: meditation, music, prayer, visions, and mental images. And I'm not an overly visual person, so I don't recall. They say you dream every night. I don't remember any of that. Only when something really wants to stick out that I'll recall it the next morning. But so, for example, for someone who may not know that they feel a certain way about money, we grew up poor, blah, 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 or money is evil, money is the root of all evil, rich people are greedy and they have no morals. If you have that type of thinking behind your feeling about money, then that needs to be addressed because it needs to be deprogrammed and reprogrammed. Okay, mental images can help tremendously. You can actually call on your subconscious to present an image of you accepting a big check or receiving a truck. Remember, you can imagine anything. A truck backing up onto your lawn, just a Brinks truck, like the one Jalen Ramsey had for spring training. Sorry, another sports reference. A Brinks truck. Those mental images will help, okay? And basically, okay, we're not going to get into it. Let's stick to Hill. Okay, let's continue. All right, so yes, the emotions or the feeling portions of thoughts give thoughts vitality, life, and action. The person who wins is the one who thinks he can. That's what Hill says. And of course, one of my favorite quotes of Henry Ford: whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. You are right. If you believe and you think you can do it, you can do it. If you think you can't do it, you're right. You can't do it because you're defeated yourself. You've already defeated yourself. You talked yourself out of it. So faith is knowing your thoughts will become things. When doubt or fear creeps into your mind, have some words, symbols, and images to hold your vibration steady in the faith of knowing that whatever you desire will come to fruition. Okay, let's shuffle on to Chapter 4, Auto-Suggestion. And the subtitle for this one is The Medium for Influencing the Subconscious Mind. So I've mentioned before that our subconscious is programmable. When we hold thoughts and feelings, which are counterproductive to what we want, then we must reprogram ourselves. Otherwise, we will not produce anything. That's like that little apple seed saying, hey, I want to grow up to be an orange. Then you won't be growing. if the apple seed had a conscience. The apple seed doesn't have a conscience, so he's growing up as an apple tree. But my point is, if there was a conflict between what he was and what he wants, chances are nothing is going to happen. And that's what happens to us between our conscious mind and our subconscious mind. You know, what we think and what we want or feel or are probably in conflict, and then nothing comes to fruition. Indecision is another thing that does it too, which makes nothing comes to fruition. Because if you keep changing your mind, listen, we got an assembly line here. I'm trying to produce this that you requested. I can't produce the because you keep changing the orders. Anyone who's been in real estate, change orders. Anyone who's been in manufacturing, period, change orders slows down the process. Okay? So think of that as being in your mind. You keep issuing change orders, it's never going to come to fruition. It's never going to physically manifest. All right, let's get back to autosuggestion. Autosuggestion is just self-programming. So no thought, whether it is negative or positive, can enter the subconscious mind without the aid of the principle of autosuggestion, with the exception of thoughts picked up from the ether. And these are Hill's words, mind you. Stated differently, all sense impressions which are perceived through the five senses are stopped by the conscious thinking mind and may be either passed on to the subconscious or rejected at will. The conscious faculty serves, therefore, as an outer guard to the approach of the subconscious. Nature has so built man that he has absolute control, and absolute control is all capitalized, over the material which reaches his subconscious mind. So, whatever, now, if you were young, then he had the excuse that, of course, you weren't really in control of your faculties at that time. But basically, you permit whatever you have in, whatever program that you have accepted it. And maybe that's a little different from permission, but you have accepted it. But it's a very, very slight difference, because I'm only thinking in terms of like age and capability, you know. All right, so you have control over the subconscious mind, what reaches your subconscious mind through his five senses, although this is not meant to be construed as a statement that man always exercises this control. In the great majority of instances, he does not exercise it. So basically, he was saying, yes, you have the power to control it, but you don't. Okay, we're dwindling down to the minutes here. Let me continue. Okay, so when failure is experienced, Hill goes on to say, because it is important, when failure is experienced, it is the individual, not the method, which has failed. If you try and fail, make another effort and still another until you succeed. Remember, winners never quit, quitters never win. So when the passion dies, if you don't have persistence, you're not going to keep going. And there's a story in which Hill talks about, I think it was in chapter 1, the one about 3 feet from gold. And it's a guy who quit mining for ore after he had hit like a dry patch. He sold the equipment, and the second guy that he sold it to, I guess, knew that he didn't know enough and hired an expert, and they realized that past the dry vein was 3 feet away was another ore vein, and it was rich with ore. And that guy became rich. Okay, so that's the purpose of winners never quit, quitters never win. Okay, so, but getting back to autosuggestion. So Hill goes on to say, your ability to use the principle of autosuggestion will depend very largely upon your capacity to concentrate upon a given desire until that desire becomes a burning obsession which I still call passion. Okay, the subconscious mind takes any orders given it in a spirit of absolute faith and acts upon those orders, although the orders often have to be presented over and over and over again through repetition before they are interpreted by the subconscious mind. There we go, so repetition over. And listen, program yourself. Start researching on the internet, find affirmations, music, visual effects. I have symbols in my room. Smells is another one. Smells, oh my gosh, like if you ever smell, I don't know, something that smells really delicious, and it might take you back to maybe your mother or your grandmother who used to prepare it. Smells are really powerful. Okay. All right, let's continue. So now this is what I thought interesting. Hill said, do not wait for a definite plan. And remember, he mentioned that too in the 6 steps. I think it was step number 4 or whatever. Do not wait for a definite plan through which you intend to exchange services or merchandise in return for the money you are visualizing, but begin at once to see yourself in possession of the money, demanding and expecting. Meanwhile, that your subconscious mind will hand over the plan or plans you need. Be on the alert for these plans, and when they appear, put them into action immediately. When the plans appear, they will probably flash into your mind through the 6th sense in the form of an inspiration. This inspiration may be considered a direct telegram or message from infinite intelligence. Treat it with respect and act upon it as soon as you receive it. Failure to do this will be fatal to your success. So yes, when God gives you something, run with it, is basically what he's saying. Okay. All right. Let's continue. We're down to 8 minutes. 8 minutes. Okay, then Hill goes on to talk about chapter 5, specialized knowledge. This won't take long. Specialized knowledge is basically focus and invest in yourself. He does go on to give a great example, though. He says, most of the professors have but little or no money. They specialize on teaching knowledge, but they do not specialize on the organization or the use of knowledge. And I thought this was really powerful because when you say knowledge is power, you don't really give it a whole lot of thought. But when he put it in the perspective of university, it's sitting on tons of knowledge. Professors are sitting on tons of knowledge. Yeah, I mean, now not all schools, but, most schools, they're not doing too well financially. I mean, they're not hurting, but they're not get rich, think and grow rich. So I thought that was interesting. And so Hill goes on to say that there are 2 kinds of knowledge. One in general, the other is specialized. General knowledge, no matter how great in quantity or variety it may be, is of but little use in the accumulation of money. The faculties of great universities possess in the aggregate practically every form of general knowledge known to civilization. And as I said before, yet none of them are rich. The institutions or the professors. I did like this. He talks about the word educate. The word is derived from the Latin word educo, E-D-U-C-O, meaning to educe, to draw out, to develop from within. So I thought that was pretty cool. But specialized knowledge is more so talking about focus. But I had an example of specialized knowledge. I'll give it briefly. A friend of mine got me a job at the Hartford Insurance Group. This was like decades ago. And in the payroll department. I didn't have any payroll experience either, but that's another story. But it was for the home office. I was the payroll associate for the home office, and we happen to work in a home office. So I get to see how much everybody makes and how much education is required. And I noticed that in IT, they didn't need bachelor's degrees because they had their own IT program. And so they trained people once they passed this test. So with that in mind, I went and enrolled into a computer programming training course. And after maybe like a couple of months, oh no, it was the next time that they offered the training class within. Of course, with by me taking the classes, I have a vested interest, so that will jump off on the paper. And of course, I passed the little whatever test that you had to pass, and then I was selected, and that's how I get into programming. Okay. I don't even think I finished the class, but that was beside the point. It's the specialized knowledge. So that's just an example of how you can use knowledge to gain a foothold, an opportunity, how to use knowledge to your betterment. Okay, the last one is chapter 6, imagination. And oh my goodness, I am not going to be able to do it justice in 4 minutes. But imagination is the workshop of the mind. Hill goes on to say it's the 5th step towards riches. The imagination is literally the workshop wherein are fashioned all plans created by man. The impulse, the desire, is given shape, form, and action through the aid of the imaginative faculty of the mind. Man can create anything which he can imagine. Okay. Hill goes on to say that man has discovered that his own brain is both a broadcasting and receiving station for the vibration of thought, and he is beginning now to learn how to make practical use of this discovery. Our only limitation is the ones that we impose on ourselves through our mind, okay? So write down your thoughts, visions, and I call it imaginations, the machinery of imagination, yeah, okay. So yeah, Hill says reduce your plan to writing. The moment you reduce the statement of your desire and a plan for its realization to writing, you have actually taken the first step of a series of steps which will enable you to convert the thought into its physical counterpart. So think about this. When you write it down, you're converting energy, okay? You are amplifying your intention, okay? Because first it starts off in the mind, it's a thought in the mind. Then you write it down. Now the energy is building momentum, okay? We talk about, if you watch sports, you talk about momentum all the time. Momentum is intangible, it's invisible, you can't see it. But it exists. It exists. So writing it down gives it momentum. Okay, it continues, it carries that life, and that's important. Okay, so, and there are only 2 elements, matter and energy. And to be quite honest, matter is energy. It's just a solidified version of it. Okay, so let's see here. What do we have? Okay. Yes, well, we read that. Where there's a will, there is a way. All of that is energy. So even when Hill was talking about, if you don't have a plan, it's the drive, that driving force will create a way. Oh my goodness, okay. All right, so we'll have to wrap it up for now. We'll pick up on imagination. I thought I would be able to get through chapter 6, but clearly not. So the first 5 chapters that we did get through: introduction, desire, faith, autosuggestion, specialized knowledge, and imagination. And imagination is so important that I can't gloss over it. So we will pick up imagination next week. Hopefully when we complete the book. Well, if you have any questions, send me a message on Facebook, Sonia Spirit, or One4ALLisLove@gmail.com, or Sonia.Stutz@gmail.com. All right, until next week, enjoy your life.